On February 16th, the Rubik's Cube world record 616-day drought finally ended when Yiheng Wang broke it with a 3.08, perhaps both the greatest and most tragic Rubik's Cube solve of all time. But apparently, it opened the floodgates for something nobody ever thought this world would see. Because though we just experienced 2 full years without a world record solve, just 56 days later, 8-year-old Xuanyi Geng pulled off the impossible. Beating Yiheng's record by 0.03 of a second, he became the youngest world record holder ever. The difference between this solve and breaking the single most daunting barrier in cubing history is this tiny pause right here. It was already brought up when Yiheng came extremely close to sub 3, but the sheer inevitability has now reached an unbelievable level. In speed cubing's 40-year history, we have never been this close to a barrier this many times without breaking it. The last 3 world records were all 0.15 within sub 3. At this point, the time it has taken to go from sub 4 to sub 3 is so absurdly long, it doesn't even make sense. In fact, if we look at the amount of time every world record barrier has taken to break, one thing becomes incredibly clear. In the early to late 2000s, full second barriers didn't mean much, with some world records even being broken on the same day. But all of that changed in 2011, when the insane dominance of Felix Zemdeg's managed to reach sub 6 years before anyone thought it was ever possible. His world record was so ahead of its time, it triggered a 1,500-day drought until we finally saw the first sub 5. And when Yu Shengdu broke through the sub 4 barrier just 3 years later, we knew we had another 2011 Felix situation on our hands. But what we didn't know was just how absurd it would get, because it has now taken 2,332 days for the sub 3 barrier to be broken. And the best part, it hasn't even been broken yet. For some reason, a sub 3 second Rubik's Cube solve seems to be the breaking point. Does this mean that we're close to the human limit? Or is it just that the era we're currently in is the single strangest in cubing history? It's not that Xuanyi is 8 years old, or that I personally tried to speak this world record out of existence, but that the battle of methods has reached the wildest peak we have ever seen. It made sense when Yiheng broke the world record because he uses a method that's built for extremely fast single solves. But Xuanyi learned 800 algorithms so that he could be more consistent, yet somehow, he just achieved the single biggest outlier metric in all of cubing. It's the first time a user of any method other than CFOP has ever gotten the world record, something that absolutely no one foresaw coming and really has me questioning reality. Especially when you start to ask yourself how Xuanyi managed to break Yiheng's world record while turning 30% slower than him. This solve actually starts exactly how Yiheng's world record started, where Xuanyi is going to be forming a free pair while solving the cross. Xuanyi solves on both white and yellow cross, and he does go for yellow here. White is pretty decent on the scramble, but how he approaches the yellow solution is actually by starting with a wide L2. And what that does is it sets up so that yellow is on the top. And when you do this wide U2, it's going to bring it down to the bottom here. So that also sets up this green edge to go in one move. So that's effectively how the solution starts. So again, how he sets all of that up is simply by going with a wide L2 and then an F. And now he has this interesting situation where if he were to just bring down both of these cross edges and finish off the cross, like so, he'd have this pair with the blue-red. But Xuanyi is obviously a lot smarter than that, and he is now the world record holder. So what he does is he actually brings up this cross edge, and then he does a U prime move. And that sets up these two to be a free pair in the front. Now he actually has a very interesting decision to make, because there are 2 ways to insert this pair. The first one is doing a U2, and then just inserting it into the back, like so. But the second one is actually the smarter option, because whenever you do a U move, and then insert this with a U2, it takes out this pair as well, and keeps it as a free pair. So when we do that, we also solve this pair. And that's what he does here, and it gives him a very, very clean continuation, where basically he has this free pair which he can also solve into the back, and at the same time, he saw all of the first 3 pairs in inspection, which means he knows that this is also going to be a free pair. So now he has that orange-blue into the back, and then he has a 3-mover into the front left, and the look ahead here for this final pair is very, very easy. I wouldn't actually be surprised if he predicted full F2L on this scramble. From here, Xuanyi would usually have to do a ZBLS algorithm, which would basically solve all of his white edges on the top and give him a ZBLL case. But in this particular instance, it's actually just going to be the standard solution, that will give you that ZBLL case. And out of pure luck, he ends up getting one of the greatest ZBLL cases of all time. This case right here, which can be recognized by this block that's already solved for you, and then these two corners, which are actually opposite to this corner, and from there, Xuanyi knows out of all 800 cases, he takes a little bit of time to pause, that 0.2 second pause, to recognize that it's actually just the standard algorithm that will solve this OLL and give him basically a PLL skip, or in this case, it is the ZBLL. So sure, you could make the argument that the solve could have been sub 3, but these are also peak recognition speeds for literally anyone alive right now. So I'd say the 10.8 TPS on this solve was more than adequate for a 33 move solution. The wildest part of all of this might just be that I was wrong. In a claim that I thought was extremely safe and wouldn't ever be proven false, I made a video about the possibility of this exact situation happening at the beginning of the year. The fact of the matter that everyone agreed upon was that ZB is more consistent and will eventually become the clear better method, but CFOP will always be king when it comes to breaking the most prestigious record in all of Cuban. It appears that ZB is now not only more consistent, but somehow faster for single solves as well. And as if this hypothesis wasn't enough, Xuanyi went out and proved it by beating Yihang in both the final and the semi-final of this competition. Although Yihang held the world record for the shortest amount of time since Felix did this to break Mats Valk's heart back in 2016, he is the perfect example of the eerie trend we're starting to notice. Because we actually already saw all of this back in the summer of 2023. After waiting 6 years for Yu Shengdu's immortal 3.47 world record to be broken, Max Park finally took it down with a 3.13. Then just a month later, Luke Garrett became the second person to break 3.47. So it seems that when the world record is broken just once after a very long wait, the floodgates quickly open for many to come immediately after. We can even look at that exact situation back in 2023 to predict when the next sub 3.13 time will happen. And unfortunately, it's not looking good. You see, after Luke got 3.44, there was another 378-day drought before 3.47 was broken again. Sure, maybe that was because of just how ahead of its time this world record was, but maybe it's also telling us an underlying truth about how daunting sub 3 truly is. Maybe it's suggesting that we are nearing a human limit. So you should subscribe to the channel, you know why? Because you get to see me falsely predict more world records. I said that the first ever sub 3 would be a 2.79 from Yihang that's going to happen in 1 month. So yeah, I'll be here when that happens. And you want to see me get confronted by myself about that being a correct prediction, right? It's going to be a correct prediction. And you would also know that this entire video, matter of fact, was actually just to tell you that you are slower than a 6-year-old. Because that's what the video was about. An 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, it's the same thing. Anyway, yeah. Besides that, that's about it. See ya.